Hello and welcome to another episode of the Revenue Revolution podcast, sponsored by Jointflows. Today we're joined by Rebecca Pearse, who is a sales expert and has her own consultancy as well. Hello, Rebecca. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you. Very good. Um, let's jump straight into it. Usually, what we like to do is start off with a bit of an introduction so our listeners are aware of who you are. I know you've got a wealth of experience that you bring to the table as well. And before we hit record, we had a little bit of a chat about your career today as well, which was fascinating. So I'm sure our listeners would love to hear it too. So bring us up to speed. Who is Rebecca and how have you got to where you are?
Right, thank you. Oh gosh, I've got 29 years of management experience. I've lived in Europe. I've lived in Asia. I lived in Hong Kong for a while, and I started off actually in logistics, working in client service management, sales in logistics in Hong Kong, Paris, and London. Moved over when I met my husband. I moved to into charitable work for a little bit, and sorry, that was my phone.
No worries.
I worked in charity for a little bit. I just felt I wanted to put something into charity. I did that for a while, and then I discovered software as a service, which I've been in ever since. Worked for a number of different companies, managed different teams, and I do love a good old bit of software. Love a software demo as well. So that's where I am. I now live in the UK full time. I live on a farm, a working farm, and yes, that's me. That's a kind of very short potted history of where I'm up to now.
Awesome. What is it you like about software specifically?
About software, I love the, this sounds really crazy. I love the aha moment when you're demoing to someone,
Yeah.
and you're able to automate something that they've been doing manually for so many years. And it's the look when you're demoing face to face or online of, oh my gosh, you can help me. This is going to cut down our time by X amount. I love that aha moment. And then that urgency of, we need this software as soon as possible. It's just, yeah, I get a real kick out of it.
Nice. We're still trying to figure out what the aha moment is for us. No, I'm joking. But we're working on it. So, Rebecca, I think we could speak about many things. So, in terms of AI innovation, you speak about those wow moments, and like I'm big on innovation cycles, and with AI everywhere,
Yeah.
those innovation cycles are shorter and shorter. What's your take on this?
You know what? I really like AI. I think people are scared because it's the unknown. I think when it's used correctly, I think it's good. I've had teams work with our AI when they are prospecting or whatever. I think you always have to remember that it is artificial intelligence. It's not someone in the background writing all of this for you. It's a computer doing this for you. So you do always have to double check what has been written. You can't afford to be lazy. I think that's the thing with AI. People think, oh, great, it's just going to take everything over. Great. Yeah, hey, we don't need SDRs anymore. We don't need this anymore. That's rubbish. You do need all these people. It's just AI is going to assist us and perhaps get the job done quicker.
Yeah.
But yes, I think people are nervous. I think it's great. I don't have a problem with it at all.
And you speak about so AI SDR is quite big at the moment, and there's a little bit of controversy around it, whereas a lot of people are saying that it's a bubble and it's a very short bubble, and others are saying no, it's actually here to stay for a long time. Where do you stand?
I think it's here to stay. I really do. So many new innovations over, so many years have been deemed to be it's a fad, it's something that's not going to happen. The computer, email, for goodness sake, a book, it's a fad, it's something that's not gonna stay with us. I think it will stay. I think there will be variants of it. It is like it's like a new toy, really. People get excited and we've got this and we've got this version of AI and it's great and we've got it in our company and it can do this. And I think the excitement will wear down and then it will become something that is part of everyday life in business. But actually, there is, I've been on an app today and it offered me AI assistance straight away. So, I was actually quite surprised. So I think it will become part of everyone's life. At the moment, everyone's very excited about it. And I think it will calm down to a level where it is handleable in business.
Yeah, just touching on that as well, when we think about AI with specifically to prospection, I agree with you. I do feel like it's here to stay as well, but I don't feel as if it's being leveraged perhaps in the best way currently. So what I'm seeing is, I get prospected a lot, as I'm sure many of our listeners do as well. And whereas initially there was a point of differentiation with emails that were generated by AI, now I'm seeing a lot of prospection, which looks very similar as well. So what's your view of this? How can people leverage this AI prospection, specifically around emailing, I guess, to be able to differentiate themselves? Because it's all typically the same, right? A lot of these email prospection tools, they use the same parameters. They're looking for the same sort of information. So the differentiation becomes a little bit different. It's similar to like when you think about sequencing or cadencing to begin with, that was, blew the doors wide open, right? And it was great, but now there's no differentiation.
No, and I think it's education. I think it's down for all of this. AI to be educated. You educate AI. The more that you use it, the more it's going to know how you are working. But also for that salesperson or that SDR or that CSM to perhaps take a chunk of the AI and then use their own, blend in, mix in their own personalization. And it is, you can see there are some prospecting emails that I get, and you just think, crikey, you haven't looked through it. It's amazing. The start of a 10, the classic start of a 10, it's American, it's in American, and you have you look at the person on LinkedIn, they're British, and you just think, hang on a minute, you're just not even bothered. So it is educating the people that are using it, educating AI, but also educating people that are using it, that it's not a silver bullet, it's not that quick fix. It's there to assist you.
I think, and I think it's also about being reasonable on how you use it, and it's really hard because if you're in the market and the market is so competitive and it's so difficult right now to be successful in sales, you kind of want to abuse the system a little bit. And then even if it's just for a short period of time, if you get 4 weeks of being ahead of the competition because you've nailed a clay workflow, like whatever, then I think that backfires almost systematically. Like, do you think the AI providers should be responsible for capping their own system so that it doesn't flood the whole market at once?
I think it's down to whoever buys that AI solution. It's up to the person that is managing that team to educate them, the team again, to know not to take advantage of this, this solution. You've got it there to assist you, but you've got to have that personalization. And the way to, I suppose, do that is to have those line managers, dipping into, the cadencing platforms and just checking in and actually asking the salespeople, the SDRs and the CSMs, what are you doing? How are you doing this stuff? And being able to notice, a lot of these cadencing platforms, you can notice, you can do your reporting and you can see who's sending something that is just run of the mill. So I think it is down to management to manage the AI. It's not down to the company that sold it to you. It's, they're giving you the assistance, but it's down to the people that are actually using it not to overuse it, and to educate their teams to allow them to have that personalized touch. And I would like to think that the numbers would show that as well. You know, if you're pumping out loads of emails or automated AI emails or whatever it is, and you're not getting a return or you're not getting any response, then, you know, surely that manager and that salesperson should be looking back and go, right, okay, I'm doing something really bad here. What's going on? And actually really digging into what they're doing, and realizing actually the email that's been sent or whatever it is has been sent is not good enough. I need to actually personalize that, or think of another way of approaching that that prospect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've headed up quite a few different business development teams as well. And you know, there's more than one way to generate opportunities, and the huge portion of that is around demand generation as well. I think particularly now where, you know, we speak about inboxes being flooded, people are looking for other avenues as well. Can you speak a little bit to this? Like, what do you see as being successful to generate these top of the funnel opportunities outside of, you know, your classic prospection methods?
I always stand by this, is working with your marketing team. I am a huge advocate of working with marketing. So if you are putting together a program for sales, or you're trying to, you know, land and expand a certain account, you've got to have a very good marketing person. I've worked with some brilliant marketing people that I'm still in touch with now, literally all over the world. And having a good marketing team and understanding that client or the prospect or the market or the country, whatever it is, and working on plans of how you're going to execute. So it could well be a series of emails, in-mails. It could be, we've done all kinds of things before. We've sent out personalized tins of cookies. We've sent out plants, dealing with prickly issues, so cactus dealing with prickly issues.
Nice.
And all kinds of things, from socks with ducks on them, getting your ducks in a row. And people absolutely love the duck socks. Those are great. Gold coins, not leaving money on the table, loads of quirky stuff, because you find, you know, people will, you know, I can look at my phone and I'll have a handful of prospecting emails. If they are super long, I just delete them straight away. I can't be bothered, delete. If they're 1 or 2 paragraphs, sometimes I will dip in and have a look, and sometimes I'll answer. If it's a SaaS provider that wants to demo to me, then I'll, come on, let's have a quick demo, let's have a look. I'm not necessarily buying, but I love a good demo. So I will, you know, I had an SDR once that she was hilarious. She used to WhatsApp people. She wouldn't let them go. In fact, yeah, text, WhatsApp, all different variations of knowing that market, potentially knowing that person as well, knowing the company. So there's so many different ways. It doesn't always have to be email, and a phone call and an email. There's so many different ways to capture that market. And I think the key really is looking at that person or that company and getting to grips to understand where they're coming from. So a company, if they had, you know, a recent acquisition, is there a new funding round? What is it that you can use to, as a hook, to get in there?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And it's a good transition, Rebecca, because I feel like a lot of the work is to be done around like trying to get into the channel that is not used too much yet, and trying to link it to something that is a little bit more personal as well than just a corporate initiative. But at the same time, you see so many redundancies everywhere. Like, it's very hard to actually predict in any companies what's actually happening under the hood. Like, do you see, like, how do you make this work? And then is there a repercussion around the fact that everybody's getting sacked?
It's made redundant. It is.
Come on, Mick.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is. It's a really tough one. I mean, you know, I think you don't know. You see the LinkedIn. You look at everyone's LinkedIn profile. Hey, I'm this. I'm doing this today. You know. So it's very difficult to actually know what's going on in that company or that person's life. And there's two parts to this answer. The first part is you can only do what you can do. You can't assume that that person is struggling and they're just about to be made redundant. So you still have to prospect to them, to that company, until you hear otherwise. So that's the one thing. And the other part is, there's a hell of a lot of redundancy going on at the moment. I'm seeing open to works left, right, and center, including me. And it's very tough. And I've actually hooked up with a lot of people who are open to work that you begin conversations with, and you start forming these groups of people that you get to know, whether they're in this country, in Canada, America, Asia, and you start forming these kind of associations, these groups with these people. You connect with them, not just because you think, great, when they get their next job, I'm going to prospect to them, but also for me, I suppose, being older and wiser, I actually sometimes quite concerned about some of the things that I see online, and so I actually connect with these people just to reach out and check they're okay, because I think it's so easy to be made redundant, and then that's it, you're in this abyss, and you're trying to find your way, and your LinkedIn profile says it's great, everything's fantastic, but actually you could be struggling quite a lot. So there are a lot of redundancies, Mick, but if you don't know they've been made redundant, I'm still going to prospect into them until they say otherwise. But then I still am a human being at the end of the day, and if I see people struggling, I will always reach out, and I have done that as well.
Yeah, and I know before we hit the record button, you spoke quite passionately about mental health and the mental well-being of individuals within the workforce as well, especially those who've been made redundant as well. And you're right, I actually have a friend who was made redundant a few months ago, and he started off all right to begin with. It's all a giggle, had a lot of jokes. But as time progressed, then reality hits, right? He's got a mortgage, he's got children, so it does become a challenge as well. As someone who is more experienced in regularly providing advice to people, what kind of advice can you give to people who are going through this situation to navigate themselves through it?
Have a plan. Have a daily plan or a weekly plan of how you're going to set out your day as though you're in the office. So actually still keep your diary open, and have chunks of time when you're prospecting to look for work yourself, but also to take that coffee break, to take that lunchtime, and then to take some time out. So and now at the moment, if you've got kids, all the kids are on holiday, so actually spending a bit of time with your children, super important. Or if you don't have kids, dogs, take the dog out for a walk. Actually spending that time outside for exercise, get yourself down the gym, or take yourself off for a walk, even around the block, whatever it is, just to get away from it, because it's so easy to, like your friend, it's so easy. It's almost like that honeymoon period of excitement. You've been made redundant. Oh, it's going to set me on a new path. I'm so excited about this was meant to happen. It's meant to be. Then after a while, it's, oh God, I've got the mortgage, the kids, the food, everything. And you have to have a plan each week, because otherwise it will consume you. You've got to walk away from that desk for periods of time. Otherwise you will get so consumed in job searching. And it's good to job search, but you cannot do it for 8 hours a day, because you will drive yourself crazy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I think you also made inferences to having a support system or a support network in place as well.
Yeah.
How would you go about doing that? So I guess so my question is, like, I try to support my friend, obviously, but we're in two different situations. So it's very difficult for me to say, oh, I know what you're going through, because I don't. Right. So how do you put yourself in a position where I guess ultimately you're looking for like-minded people who are going through the same challenges that you can overcome together?
If you're in sales or marketing or wherever it is, you're going to find them on LinkedIn. If you're you're going to see the posts if you've got enough connections on LinkedIn. And that's how I found my sort of group of people, is that through my connections on LinkedIn, I've seen so many people sharing, those open for work banners and connections. I've connected a lot with my connections already. And also and this is, I think, something that's very underutilized with LinkedIn. I'm a huge LinkedIn advocate, and love the platform, always have done. And there's a whole section called groups. And you can join groups there. So it's not, there's not going to, I don't think there is a redundancy group, but there'll be
can create one.
well, there'll be, sales leaders. There'll be, I belong to many WhatsApp sales leaders groups, for example, that I've been speaking to. This is a classic example. Us chatting now, we've met through one of our groups. Yeah, so we've met through one of our WhatsApp groups. We're now chatting on that WhatsApp group. There's 170, 180, whatever it is, and it's about who you know. And that's the interesting thing, is making yourself, putting yourself out there and doing posts. I did a mental health post a couple of days ago about me walking on Dartmoor, for example, and the amount of people that have clicked it and have messaged saying, "Oh, great, that's a lovely view. I'm looking for, I see you're open for work. I'm looking for work, finding it a bit of a struggle." And that's how those conversations happen, is getting yourself out there on LinkedIn or other platforms. That's the key, really.
EBSTA released a report, I think 2 weeks ago, saying that there was 75% of reps missing quota in the first half of the year. So I think these things then generate another wave of layoff. Like, do you think that the best practice for anyone nowadays, especially in a sales role, is to always be looking for a job, so that you're never in a position where like, if you
1 foot in, 1 foot out?
Yeah, but there's a lot of hype when you join a company. You've got these values and the culture of the company, and we're family, and so on and so forth. And then
I hate
6
that
months
line.
later, they struggle, and then no more family. Like, it's actually your cost center. I've told you were a cost center. We needed to improve the numbers. No. Everybody's get laid off. And the people who have bought into the loyalty aspect of the culture often are the ones that are the most penalized by it, because they didn't plan for a plan B, basically. Like, do you feel like we should always be trying to find something else?
I think my answer to that is always being open to, if a recruiter approaches you, there's no harm in having that initial conversation. And you can, when I start working for a company, I do buy into the values. You just think, well, that's why I wanted to work for them in the first place. You buy into the values, but I think you always have to be aware that this is a company, this is not your family. And when things don't go so well, they will make cuts, because they are doing what they can to keep that company going, and they have. That's what you do as a company owner. You have to make those cuts and make those very, very difficult choices. So as a person, with any responsibility, whether it's just a dog or a rental or a mortgage, whatever it is, you always have to be selfish. I have a wonderful friend who she's been in business for many, many years, and incredibly successful woman. And she's kind of like my mentor in a way. And she's always said to me, Rebecca, you must be very selfish. You have to be selfish, not I must be selfish. You have to be selfish in business, especially if you're the main breadwinner, which I am. You have to be selfish. You have to, if you're happy, then it's that ripple effect of everyone else being happy. And so being selfish has to almost be in the workplace. You will buy in, you'll join a company, you will buy into that workplace, the ethics and what they, everything that they stand for. But you also have to remember it is a company, and if they do need to make cuts, they will make cuts. And you know, and they will always, it's not personal, but you have to think about yourself. You have to be selfish. And when you become selfish, then that's when everyone else around you in your bubble, your family bubble, whatever it is, will reap that reward. And that sounds very selfish, but it is very true. You have to think about yourself. And I've, you know, hey, I've been in a position where I've had to make people redundant, and I feel dreadful about it, but it's what you have to do to ensure the survival of the company that you're working for. And it is reality. It's harsh. It's really harsh, but that is the reality.
Do you think the employer should be accountable to then reposition these people?
To what, sorry?
To then reposition these people, or to help them get.
Yeah, see, I think that's something. I think if you're making quite a few people redundant, I think, and this is my own personal opinion, I do feel that they should have responsibility. If they've brought you on board and then they offboard you for whatever reason, I do feel in a redundancy position, nothing to do with, you know, anything else. From a redundancy point of view, I do feel that companies should take that responsibility to ensure the welfare of their ex-staff, but also helping them with opportunities as well. I feel quite strongly about that.
I agree. I think it's quite easy to just let people go and then deal with it. And people, you know, you've got a family to look after. You dedicated some time for that business.
Yeah.
With something traded off, it's not just salary. It's you could have been somewhere else, perhaps on a bigger package. Maybe you took a cut because you were promised equity and so on and so forth.
Yes.
I've got a follow-up question, Rebecca, which this might be a bit of a tricky one, but when you apply for a new role, the due diligence done during the hiring process is getting tougher and tougher. Like, I know a lot of companies who are now asking to see P60s and proof of earning from the previous job and so on and so forth. A, do you think it's fair? And B, do you feel like the people who are applying for this role should be entitled to also see the financials of the companies they're going into?
So you should be able to see the financials if you do your own due diligence through companies like Crunchbase. You should be able to see a lot of that, and that's something that I do myself. I'll always, you know, I think an interview is a two-way street. I'm interviewing them as well as they're interviewing me as well. I don't agree with companies asking for proof of previous earnings. It's almost like the trust is already broken. I don't agree with that, and I think in UK law, I'm not sure we're allowed to do that. I'm not sure, but you know, I just don't think it's a trust thing. But also I agree with you. I think, you know, Mick, I think it's important to be able to see how that company's doing. It's great to hear from the person selling to you, yeah, we're doing so well and we're going to break into this market. The last thing you want to do is to look at that without doing a bit of due diligence yourself, and just those company numbers. I suppose you could say, well, they're trying to do the same thing with you, but I think it's a different thing. Companies and company money and personal money is a different, in my eyes, it's a different thing.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is a two-way street. I hear about a lot of people who take jobs, and then when you speak to them after a while, like, mate, it's nothing like this. You know, they said it was X% inbound. They said that everyone's hitting OTE, everyone's hitting target, but you know, there's only one person. So I agree that there should be a due diligence phase for the candidate as well, who should be asking appropriate questions. As someone who has hired many people and built many teams as well, what do you think are some of the more sensible real questions that candidates should be asking as part of that? Because I feel like if you get this part right, then you increase your probability of success in the role. And, you know, with that stat Mick gave before, so 75% of people haven't hit target in H1. Well, actually, if you did your due diligence, obviously there's other factors as well, but there's a high probability that you would be on a better path right now.
Yeah, I've always asked to, they always have a plan, you know, when you're going up for a job, they'll say, we've got, you know, 4 different stages and, you know, this is who you're going to meet. if the marketing people aren't in that stage, I will always ask to meet with them, because that's the department that I'm potentially going to be working with the most. I always ask about marketing and RevOps. I always want to know those two departments. I want to potentially speak to them as well, and hear their side of things. So tell me about the campaigns. What did you do? You know, that in the past 2 quarters, how have you worked together with sales? Or, you know, what are your plans? And I've been in scenarios where a marketing person, the head of marketing, has said, well, we haven't really been involved, but this is my idea, and I'd really love to do this, and I want to do this, and they get quite excited with things, and you just think, oh, this is great, because then the good thing with that is they're going to go back to that recruiter or the person that is employing, you know, it's whoever, saying, this candidate asked me so many questions, God, I could work with them. They had these ideas, think the same as me. And so you've already planted a seed internally about brand Rebecca, for example, and you've got those 4 interviews that are taking place with the key people, but then you've got other people from other areas advocating internally on your behalf. So it's a way to kind of to get round speaking to people. So if you're working in sales, you want to know how's marketing going to help you, or RevOps, or you know, do they have a BDR team? Can I speak to the head of BDR? Can I speak to the senior BDR? Tell me how's it going for you? What do you use? How many leads do you honestly send across? Or, you know, do you work on a 1-to-1 basis, or is it 1-to-3? And actually finding that data out, and it can hit the HR people. They're like, oh, okay, so I'll set up another interview for you with this person. Well, it's not an interview, it's just a chat. I want to hear from someone internally how, if I were to start working for your company, how it would work. So yeah, those are I think for me, if you know, my advice to people listening to this is, if they are going for a job, whether it's sales, BDRing, CSM, whatever it is, marketing, think about who you're potentially going to be working with. You're going to be working with your line manager and the HR, but who else? And if they don't come up in that interview, potentially ask, look, could I speak to the head of BDR? Could I speak to the head of sales, the marketing, or the RevOps? Could I, you know, I want to understand how it works in your company. So, you know, just thinking outside of the box, I think.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. One of the questions as a follow-up I have then for you is, it's very competitive, right? We just spoke about the number of people who've been made redundant as well. And we spoke about mental well-being. We spoke about very topics that are really interconnected so far today. And as an individual who is then applying for a job, which is very competitive to get to begin with, is there a psychological barrier where it's, hey, look, man, I don't want to put up any resistance over here and be viewed as, you know, troublesome almost, and I'm going to minimize my chances of getting this job by adding more work on their side, where there's, you know, Bob or Jane over here who are just happy to go through the process. How do you overcome that? I've not done it myself, so I don't know, but I would imagine there's a mental hurdle to be able to say, all right, I need to do this.
Yeah, and I think it's just through showing your enthusiasm, you know, whether you're going into a sales role, oh, this sounds amazing. So, you know, Jane, HR lady, can you tell me how it works, how the process works in sales in terms of the BD, do you get a BDR, or how does the BDR team work? Well, actually, Rebecca, I'm not too sure. Oh, okay. Would it be possible to speak to someone about that? Is that a possibility, or you know, could I do something? So actually, I suppose almost lining it up, you know, sounds great. Can you help me to understand how that works? Or, you know, can I understand about the SDR team, how that works? How do they feed into sales, or how does marketing work? So it's not obviously to look, I need a meeting with marketing because I'm not going to progress any further. It's actually just to have those open questions that are almost hooks for them to go, oh, would you like to meet with the head of BDRs? That would be brilliant. That would really help me to understand, because I've been doing so much back work about the company. I just need to understand how that works. So and it is, you know, hey, I'm not going to lie here, it is a bit of a gamble, but But then at the end of the day, if you get the job, you want to know what you're putting yourself up for, as opposed to, you know, slightly blinkered going through it and then getting the job and realize, oh my gosh, you know, it's a 360 sales role. Hang on a minute, they said it was SDRs and salespeople. So it's that kind of thing, really.
All right, very good. I've got a last question, Rebecca, and then it's probably time to close. But you must be a very good manager, because you said to start with that you've got people from previous roles still reaching out to you.
Yeah.
It's is the same. Like sometimes you receive a call from. I'm not the same. I don't receive any. But from someone you managed maybe 2 years ago, and sometimes it's about personal problem.
Yes.
Why is he even speaking to you about his mortgage? But sometimes it's also about a deal. Say, hey, I've got this deal. How do you move it? Like, so
Yeah.
there's a level of credibility and trust that you've managed to build that goes beyond just that point in time, the role you had then.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like, teach me personally, please.
I've been trying, Rebecca. I've been trying. It's not easy to get through to this guy, so I don't know.
It's not. I think it's time. I think it's, you know,
I don't have that right. That's it then.
Sorry.
I'm joking.
No, I think it's a lot of it is to do with, you know, if you've got good emotional intelligence, and spending time with your teams. So actually my last role at Automata was a remote role, but I chose to go into the office every week for a couple of days because the team that I'd recruited was so much fun. I loved spending time with them. They were great. And I would also utilize that time to have my one-to-ones with them every week, religiously every week. As much as I could, I would have face-to-face one-to-ones, because you can read so much more from someone face-to-face. So I've managed teams, you know, in different countries. So going out to, I had a team for 6 years out in Cairo. So I'd make a point of being out there quite a few times a year. So I could have extended one-to-one time with them. I'd take one of them at the time to lunch, or we'd go and do something together just to get to know that person. And that time, not necessarily always talking about work. It's, you know, just, I'm not going to dig into their personal life, but, you know, if they choose to tell me about it, which they always seem to do, that's how the relationship, they've always grown that way. So when numbers aren't quite right, and they're not quite making their numbers, they feel able to talk to me, to come to me, to say I'm struggling here. But then I feel able to speak to them because I know their background, their situation, to be able to ask them some questions so I can help them to piece together why the numbers aren't stacking up for them, and how we can work together to help them get back on track. So it's time. One-to-ones are super important. I would never want to be in a situation where I don't have time for one-to-ones. I will never be in a situation where I don't have time for, I'm too busy to ever do one-to-ones with my team. That's never, ever going to happen. Spending time, but also face-to-face time with teams is crucial. Not just an organized corporate event, but actually taking teams out for, colleagues out for coffee. I can't, I'm a huge Starbucks fan. You'll see on my LinkedIn thing, the amount of Starbucks I've gone through, or Joe and the Juice, the juices and things, just chatting to teams, and I suppose that's why they come back to me. And it is, the same as Hitesh. It's, I get people asking about, I'm struggling with this deal. This is job come up. What do you reckon? Do you reckon that I could go for this job? I've just split up with my partner. I don't know what to do. Should I move country? Should I stay in the same country? I hear it all the time. And for me, it's, even though they don't work we don't work together anymore, I will always take that time, even if it's, it's out of hours on a weekend. I will always take that time to respond and have a quick chat if needs be.
Well, good. Well, we need more people like you. I think if everyone was looking at it the same way, in the whole industry would probably be in a much better state.
No, thank you very much. No, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, Rebecca. This wrap-up question might be a little bit difficult for you because you've had such an amazing career to date. But the question is, through that career, what is your favorite memory and why?
Ooh. Oh, I'm 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 going to have to say managing a team in Cairo, and wow, can they party? That's all I'm going to say. They know who they are if they're listening. Going to Cairo with one of my amazing bosses. I'll always mention Dom, fantastic boss. Going to Cairo with him and meeting the team, and they used to put on amazing hospitality for us, and that's all I'm going to say. Wow, can they party? They work very hard. They work very, very hard, but crikey, could they party? So yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As a reminder to our listeners, Rebecca is looking for a role currently as well, and I'm sure she'll be adding a lot of value wherever she ends up. So do hit her up on LinkedIn, or if you want to get in contact through us, then let us know, and we're happy to connect you as well. But this has been the Revenue Revolution podcast, sponsored by Jointflows. Until next time, thank you for joining. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye.